Hey guys, it's Gather the Nerds. Nick is filming. He's back there. Yes, awkwardly. We are with Nick Filardi, colorist extraordinaire. I ran into his stuff going over the realm. You know, Jeremy Hahn and all of his stuff that we've talked about. He's been on the show several times. I just kind of want to run down your comic book TV list because it is impressive. I'm not going to go through all of it.
It's 15 years of comics. It's
yeah.
5 comics a month for 15 years.
That is a lot. And here's the thing. You were only 2 days older than I am.
Yeah.
And so 15 years is... So you've got things like 28 Days Later, Adventures of Superman, All New Deadpool, Amazing Spider-Man, Arkham Manor Endgame, BPRD, Avengers Standoff, a whole slew of Batman, and Batman 66, Batman Beyond, Batman Streets of Gotham.
Right.
Let's see, Captain Marvel. Let's see here, Cave Carson, Conan, Dark Tower, DC Bad World, a lot of some Deadpool, Detective Comics. Let's see, Forever Evil, Halloween.
Right.
Books that I'm just like, there's books for everything. Howling Commandos of S.H.I.E.L.D. You've got Legends of the Dark Knight, Marvel Heroes Annual. We'll scroll down. Punisher War Journal. Red Thorn. You worked with Megan. So I know Megan also.
Okay. I went to school with Megan.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
I have a lot of stuff. Megan and I have become friends. She's really cool.
She's great.
Spider-Man, Deadpool, Superman Saga, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Uncanny X-Men.
Okay, this is stuff I don't think about on a regular basis. I'm getting a little overwhelmed by my own bio.
Umbrella Academy, which obviously is in the news at the moment. Uncanny X-Men, Wonder Woman, Wolverine, Black Cat, X-Men Universe, X-Men Red. And here's the thing, that was maybe like 15-20% of it. So that's quite a bit. So let's go back to the very beginning.
Oh no!
How do you get into this? Like, how do you? At what point you're like, this is what I want to do? For the rest of my life?
I went to private art school. It was very expensive. I got out and I was like, it was 2004 at this point, and I was like, what's my most marketable skill? Because I need money yesterday for these bills.
Yeah.
And it was comic book coloring. And at the time in 2004. For anybody who doesn't know, the business looked like you could make money doing Marvel, you could make money doing DC, but they were still like kind of clinging to like a house style at that point too.
Yeah.
So if you didn't like really fit into the like DC house style, there was no place for you.
Okay.
And so it was like, well, I can do indie comics and like and I did like some little indie comics about goat cowboys fighting a chupacabra and
what is this book and how have I not read it?
Because I made like 50 of them and stapled them together and like gave them to my friends and that was it. So I was doing like little comics like that, but I was like, the internet was in its infancy, social media was in its infancy, so I was like, I don't know how to sell these. I can't pay a monthly student loan with these. Yeah. So I was like, I'm gonna try coloring. It's my most marketable skill. I got started with NYC Mech with Ivan Brandon and Annie McDonald, and Grounded with Paul Azaceta and Mark Sable. Those are my first 2 books. That was my break. Both of them were at Image. And it kind of snowballed from there. I started doing coloring as like this is going to be my day job, and then I'm going to do drawing in the evening. And then I just started really loving coloring. It just became like, in this business, I feel like you have to kind of fall in love with the level up, and with coloring, it was just like, okay, I got palette down. Okay, what's the next thing? I got to get shapes down. I got to get foreground, middle ground, background down. I got to get it was like one thing after another. It was one challenge after another. How do I do fire? How do I do water? How do I do reflections in water? Can I paint them in? How do I make that believable? How do I match the artist to make it believable? That kind of stuff. So it just became like what I thought was like an afterthought at the time with comic book coloring became like this very full, rich, artistic thing. I was like, oh, well, I guess we'll just roll with this. So, yeah.
So you mentioned, you're working with all these different artists.
Yeah.
Kind of describe the process of the Realm, for example. The Realm has a very specific color palette we were talking about yesterday. What's kind of like the dialogue like between you and the artist and things like that? Or is it you and the studio? Or is it do some people just let you go and just do what you do? Or some people I want this?
It's going to vary from book to book to book. Jeremy came to me with the Realm, and he already had kind of like he had a vision of like what he thought it was going to be. But a lot of times you're like, as a colorist, people will be like, I really like Conan. You figure out how do we get there? You know, like, so it's not like in the Realm, I specifically avoid anything blue on the color wheel.
Okay.
So that it looks unnatural. There's no blue skies. It like feels rusty.
Okay.
It like leans orange because it's leaning away from blue. So it feels like this like rusty, terrible world.
Mad Max-ish kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but when Jeremy was like, hey, we're developing this book, here's like what it's about, here's the inspiration I'm pulling from, I was like, oh, I've been doing this long enough to know that like we're speaking in code basically.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I like this, and I'm like, that means this, you know. So yeah, it's just experience and finding your way with that stuff.
Gotcha.
But with superhero stuff like Deadpool, it's like anything goes. Just like as long as it looks great, like superhero books and like moody books like a Hellboy or something like that are two different skill sets and two different animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are actually doing this interview literally live in the middle of the show floor as the show opened. You can come up, we can pause this. This is no big deal. So.
I wanted to get a signed copy if that's okay.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha. Transactions are happening live as we go.
Until when we were leaving
So. And we're back. Sorry for that pause for that commercial break. So when you look at something like because I can imagine something like The Realm versus something like Rick and Morty, like
wildly different. Also, Rick and Morty is an established IP, so you are dealing with like a lot of the notes that I get on Rick and Morty will be like, hey, Rick's spittle is actually like 10% more yellow. Can you just like go in, and Rick's on every page. Okay. So it's like, can you just go in and just bump it just a little bit with the slider on every page for 2 hours? So like, you know, like Jeremy's not giving me notes like that. Jeremy, we're like
after hearing this, he might.
No idea. Don't give him any ideas.
Yeah, Jeremy, no, don't do it.
But like, Jeremy will like we go through storytelling notes, and he's also like, you know, I want you to be happy with the book. I want it to be your book just as much as it's my book. So he respects me and he trusts me to like do what I do. Yeah. And the more, for anyone out there putting together a comic book, the more you kind of like put your colorist in a box and note them, the more miserable they're going to be and the worse it's going to look. Like there's been some books that I've done where we've done like 4 rounds of notes, and then by the end of it, like I hate it. And it's like I was more happy with the original, and like we just kind of like everyone gets exhausted, and then everyone's just kind of like, this is fine, you know, like
good enough, we'll take it. Yeah. So in terms of like, obviously we kind of went through your comic book DB.
Sure.
Like you get the phone call and says, I need you to do Batman.
Yeah.
Does your head explode in that moment?
It did the first time. Yeah. It did the first time.
Or is that the 4 rounds of notes?
No, it's not. I usually the smaller the project, the more indie, the more headache notes than Marvel DC stuff. Yeah. No, the first time it blew my mind for sure. I remember the first time I got like good like livable page rate was when I started working on Powers with Bendis and Oming. Okay. And I remember Omen calling me, vividly I remember this, in my terrible apartment in Philadelphia. He calls me and he's like, hey, you got Powers, because I was like trying out for it. Yeah. He's like, hey, you got Powers, and it was like full on like jumped in the air, freeze frame, you know, like, I was over the moon. And then when I started booking Marvel and DC stuff, it was like, oh God. Like, I hope they like this. I hope I don't burn my career to the ground. You know, like, it was really nerve-wracking. But, you know, they had me on smaller stuff, and I came to realize that it's like building a baseball team. You know, like, you let them try, and you let them get their nerves, and then you invest in them, and then eventually you hope that they pay off down the line. So, like, I was nervous, and it was hard for me. And I turned in the best work I could at the time, given like my mentality and how I was feeling and everything. And then they continued to invest in me, and eventually I became like okay with it.
Gotcha.
You know? Like I started to enjoy the work. It started to be no big deal.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
Because you always hear about the Marvel and the DC way, like
Sure.
how stuff is done. I imagine starting something a little bit smaller, you kind of get like, this is kind of how we do things. This is
it's. I feel like the Marvel and DC way used to be a thing.
Yeah.
But now, like, basically everyone, like, this is the best time for comics, period. Like, everyone's like, golden age, you know, Stan Lee's, like, at his top of his game, you know, Jack Kirby's at the top of his game, and they make great work. But I believe that right now, like, there are so many different ways to make comics, to read comics, and there's just such a glut of fantastic books out there that, like, the Marvel and DC way don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
You know, people are just like, as long as it looks good at the end, like, as long as it's going to be engaging and people are going to enjoy it, like, that's all that matters.
You look at something like Dark Knight's Metal, which is absolutely bananas, like Joker dragons and all kinds of things. But it's just an engaging story. So you're coloring books, you're doing things. Are you reading? Do you read books at the same time? Do you have stuff? What's in your pull list right now?
I do comicsology sales. That's my like but the thing is that I'll end up with like, I'll be like, oh, you know what? I like Thor. And then it's like, oh, they're doing a Jason Aaron sale. And I'll be like, let's just get 5 years of Thor into the cart. And then
and it's $7.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And so I've been bouncing between Switch games, because I like, basically the only time I have to like read or play a game or anything like that I don't do on stream is like 45 minutes before I fall asleep. Yeah. So it needs to be backlit, and it needs to be easy. Yeah. So I bounce between like Switch games. I'm playing Valkyria Chronicles right now. Yeah. And then like just reading entire runs of stuff. Yeah. I have on deck right now. I have Gotham Central to reread.
Okay.
Because I read it when it came out, but that was like forever ago.
And then you read so much you don't remember.
Yeah,
reading it again.
Yeah. So I'm excited to jump back into it.
So you mentioned streaming. So you're on Twitch. So you have a Twitch channel that you. So you're doing coloring and gaming both on the Twitch
doing
channel?
Coloring and gaming. I try to lean coloring, but like it's the hurdle that I have is that like I will color all day, and then it's like time to sit down and do extra color, you know, like
for the stream. Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of people who are like, you know what I want to do is my job again, but publicly and for very little money. Yeah. That's what I want.
Yeah.
So, but I understand that, like, I think there's value in showing the process, and I think there's value in letting people ask questions to a professional to make the industry a little less like a roadblock and more accessible, because I want to read good comics. Like, that's what I want. I want like people to be making cool shit, you know? Yep. So like, you know, that's what I want to like facilitate. So I started like basically offering up advice and help, and I run a Discord that's like running 24/7, and I'm in there as long as I'm in the chair. The Discord's open. People like will ping me with like, hey, I'm working on I got a project lined up. It's 120 pages. I've never asked for a page rate before. What should I start at? What should I be thinking about? Like, basically advice like that with where like people are trying to get their legs. Yeah. And I try to help them out as best I can. Yeah. So,
well, Jim Lee did for a while. He did a Twitch channel too, and that whole thing. That thing kind of like. It's Jim Lee, so like it started off very small, and there was like 300, 400, 500 people in it, stuff like that, and then he started basically giving away the stuff he's working on in stream
to subscribers.
But, but here's the thing: it's Jim Lee. Like, he doesn't have time to really do this, so he's kind of backed off it a little bit. But he's doing portfolio reviews and stuff like that on stream.
Right.
And so,
I do portfolio reviews as well. So I do portfolio reviews for subscribers. I'm not Jim Lee, so it's more of a colorist slant than it is a penciler slant. Yeah. But I mean, I went to art school. I can review penciled pages. It's fine. The thing is though is like, you know, Jim is so high at DC that like I feel like there's this idea that like I'm gonna get him to review my portfolio, and then
I'm
I'm gonna
gonna
be
get a
working
job.
on Batman. You know, like, but like there's not that with me.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna get you to work on Batman.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try to do Tuesday, Thursdays, schedule depending, do coloring, and then on the weekends I'll play some trash PS2 game or something like that.
Nice.
Or I'll play some Genesis games or something
Okay.
like that. I'm an old man, so it takes me like I don't do a lot of like modern games
Yeah.
that everybody's play. I play a little Red Dead on stream, but like
Yeah.
other than that, like it's been pretty much like indie games and retro games. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, the thing, like, as you're doing those reviews and stuff like that, like, you have no idea, like, you may point somebody in the direction that's literally going to launch their career. Like,
that's the goal.
Yeah.
The goal of it is like not to be like, hey, I'm gonna take you and I'm gonna send your email. Like that's not the idea of the portfolio review is to put that person on the path. Like
Yeah.
look at the work and be like, okay, I see you thinking about this. It's the right instinct, but you got to lean into it a little more.
Yeah.
I see you doing this. Don't do this anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like
This is
'cause
bad.
I feel like, you know, there's when someone looks at a colored page, they're just like, this works, this doesn't work. I don't know why, you
Yeah.
know. But I look at a colored page and I'm like, your textures are doing you a disservice. You got to think about atmospheric perspective here. You know, like I'm able to like piece it apart. You know.
Yeah. And that's the thing, when you look at, you know, comics in general, like, unless you're heavily invested in it, the creation process is lost on some people.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, you're looking at pencils and
Yeah.
inks and how, you know, the pencils influence the inks, and how you see kind of, like, as Scott Williams was talking to
Sure.
a guy about inking yesterday, and he's just like, sometimes, like, the pencils are a guideline, and the inker does what the inker wants to do.
Oh,
And
yeah.
sometimes if you go outside those pencils, the penciler gets really mad.
Yeah, the same is true with coloring. Like, sometimes, like working with Mike Oming on Cave Carson, he's like, I don't know, dude, go crazy. He's like,
Yeah.
do whatever you want to do. I hit in like the last arc of Cave Carson. This took a lot of effort and no one noticed. I hid. You remember those Magic Eye posters?
Yeah.
So I hid a handful of eyeballs arranged in a pattern in a background, where if you hold the comic a little bit away from yourself and then like kind of like let your eyes relax, they will actually pop off the page at you. And I was like knocked it out again, like totally brilliant. No one noticed.
They're like, what is happening when I'm reading this?
But like, I was basically like, you know, Mike gives me the freedom to be like, hey, I'm just gonna put a bunch of eyeballs over your art for this panel. He's like, cool, you know, like. But like Jeremy is like, you know, the line art is important, and like you can colorize it, but you can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, as long as it's all there, because he's putting it down with like a specific purpose, and
Yeah.
he more so than Mike and Jeremy have kind of two different thought processes with color and creating the page and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
Mike's he's a little less precious than Jeremy with it, and
Yeah.
it's no one's right, no one's wrong. It's
Yeah.
just like feeling out like what artists can tolerate, like what amount of my bullshit, basically.
So you're doing, you know, you've done work on Umbrella Academy, which
Yep.
hits Netflix all of a sudden.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, it's this, I mean, it was a thing, but now it's really a big thing.
Yep.
And so, is that something you're working on right now?
I'm working on it right now.
Yeah.
I have like 11 pages left of issue 7, which is the last issue.
Yeah.
I'm going to be working on that when I get back from this show.
Yeah.
And hopefully that'll come out soon. And because I know Dark Horse is like, we got to get the trade out. We got to get the trade out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you mentioned before, how many books are you working on at once?
So this is the plan is 4 books a month.
Okay.
In practicality, I'm doing about 5 or 6. The like how it works is I can do 4 comfortably and
Yeah.
be a sane, normal human being.
Gotcha.
When I do 5, it's like, okay, like I'm streaming a little bit less, I'm drawing a little bit less on the side.
Yeah.
When I do 6, I'm a jerk to live with. When I do 7, the wheels have fallen off the wagon entirely. So yeah, I'm working on Umbrella Academy, Nightwing, The Realm, and Heartthrob.
Okay.
And then like this is the thing with the wheels and the wagon. I'm working on a couple of other things that are unannounced, but like we're trying to get the books together. So issue 1s are a lot harder than issue 2s, 3s, and 4s because we're trying to figure out what this thing is.
Yeah.
You know? So it's a lot of notes and it's a lot of like back and forth, and I'm just like, just leave me alone. I just want to let me go, you know? Like,
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the game. It's how it is.
So so you mentioned Nightwing, Umbrella Academy, and The Realm, completely different studios.
Yes.
So you
I'm
are
across the board.
Yeah, you are an independent lone gunman, whoever you want to.
The other companies that I'm working for, those other books are Skybound and AWA.
Yeah.
So it's like really across the board.
Yeah. Because you look at some people, like some artists, DC has that stable, like you only work for me, like that's it.
Right.
But obviously, something like that, if you're working on 5 books or 4 books or 7 books, obviously you're in demand, but it benefits you to be like, nope, I'm just going to do what I want to do.
Yeah. Most of my career has been like that. I feel like you have to be operating at a very, very high level before Marvel or DC is like, just us, please,
Yeah.
And I've hit that level, but like I have all these other obligations and stuff. Like DC wants to give me more work, but like I'm like I just can't. I can't right now. It's gonna take. This is the thing too. When people are like, I'm gonna give Jim Lee my portfolio and then I'm gonna work on Batman.
Yeah.
It like comics moves so slowly. Like right now I'm primed to do mostly DC work, but I have to finish these other obligations, and these other obligations are gonna take like a year and a half probably.
Mm-hmm.
Like what I thought when I was like handing portfolios to artists and editors and stuff when I was like trying to break in was that I was going to like hand a portfolio, get an email next week, and be hired on a book, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Like it works at like 6 months at a time, a year at a time.
Yeah.
So even like the first positive experience that I had with an editor, I was like, this is great. He gave me the color editor for the company. He was like, send samples. I sent samples, and 5 years later, I worked for the company.
Wow.
It's just like you gotta like be at the right time, in the right moment, fitting in the right way, and a lot of that is chance. It's just straight up luck.
Yeah. So when you're talking about, submitting, because a lot of people they'll submit portfolios, and you hear these horror stories of these editors that are terrible, things like that. Do you have any horrible editor stories without mentioning names?
Horrible editor stories,
or just interesting submission work stories where you're like, really, said? Like,
really, I've had like a mostly positive experience. Like I've heard some secondhand some stories where like people have given their portfolios to an artist or something, and they've been like, quit comics, which I think is a terrible idea, because this is the thing, like, not to get too granola crunchy here, but like we're all on an artistic journey. Like we all start somewhere.
Yeah.
Like I don't think the advice is ever to quit comics. I think it's like, just do this more often and it'll click,
Yeah.
So I don't really have I remember I think maybe it's just because it's been so long. I'm sure that I got bad reviews, but it's been so long that I only remember the good ones at this point.
Yeah.
Like I only really remember the people that really like boosted me along the way. Like I got a early on, and I'm sure he doesn't remember this, but Brian Steelfreeze gave me a fantastic review on my color portfolio before I had any published work.
Yeah.
And he like really took time out for me, and this is part of the reason why I'm doing the Twitch stream, is because like I want to pay it forward, and he like really spent time, really went over pages with me, and like was like, dude, you're on the path, just keep doing this, and it like put fuel in my tank for years. Like a small act of kindness to someone who is peddling a portfolio will launch them for years, and it's totally worth it.
it's those are great to hear those stories. Like I follow him on
Yeah.
Facebook and stuff like that. Some of the stuff he's been doing for Free Comic Book Day, the sketches are just
Oh,
absolutely bananas.
mind-blowing.
Yeah.
He's one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. So we talked before. So you said you were shooting some B-roll for some stuff here.
Yeah.
What else are you working on other than this and
So-
gaming and twitching?
So one of the things that I just recently realized is that I'm trying to get like a consistent schedule for YouTube and Twitch, which is difficult for me just
We
because
feel
my
you.
schedule is never consistent.
Yeah.
Like something is always like either a little bit on fire or a lot on fire, or like there's always work to be done. So I'm trying to find time to make this consistent. And then I was like, I went to Emerald City Comic Con and I was just away for 6 days, and I was like, it's just gonna be like a week of no content, and then I'm gonna get back, and it's gonna be like everything's on fire, and it's gonna be another week of no content. And I was like, I need to find a way to make content on the road.
Yeah.
And then I realized, I was like, I'm here at a show, my friends are here, they're all artists. Why don't I just talk to them? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I was just like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
I'll just make content here. So I did one. I'm very, very early in this. I'm still figuring out the tech. Like it's early legs on this,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to do videos where I talk to people about process and about breaking in, and same thing, horror stories,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And then I'm cutting together like B-roll of the con. Today I'm going to be talking to some cosplayers and asking them questions and stuff, and trying to like cut that into the video to make it like kind of interesting, so it's not
Yeah.
just me and a friend droning on and on and on. So I don't know.
Awesome. So plug all your social media. Where can people find you?
Okay, so people can find me on Twitter at NickFil, NickFil, on Instagram at Nick_Filardi, my full name.
Okay.
They can find me on Twitch at NickFil,
Okay.
and they can find me on YouTube at NickFil.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it. I've been trying to figure out. I'm old. I've been trying to figure out what like Instagram stories is basically. Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to like how can I use this? And so I've been trying to do more Instagram stories for like smaller like. I'm a colorist, but I did some sketching at the show.
Yeah.
And I did a Realm sketch cover.
Yeah.
And I was like, this might not be what everyone wants in my feed, but like the Instagram stories, this is like kind of perfect for.
Yeah.
So
That was a Rook cover, wasn't it?
it was
Yeah.
a Rook cover.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should check out my Instagram stories.
Oh, there you go. Very cool. Well, thanks for your time. We're gonna get back to it.
Yeah,
Hopefully
yeah.
we'll cross paths again.
Yeah,
If you're
absolutely.
ever in Joplin with Jeremy, like we should all just kind of go. We're 90 minutes
I'm into
away.
that. I'm into that.
We can all go to a studio, sit around, and
Yeah.
just.
His studio's gorgeous.
It's
it
pretty
makes
amazing.
It makes me very jealous.
Do you know this? Has he ever told you the history?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me very jealous.
It's very cool. All right. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
See you. Bye bye.